Radio.
For more information on any flat earth topic, check out these YouTube channels. Yay, Flat Earth! AKA No Globe! You are watching the series of why I'm convinced the earth is flat. This next video is all about curvature. Shout out to the YouTubers of Flat Earth.
As you can see, this is the evolution meter, and I put God, the creator of everything, on the right side, and evolution on the left. I won't change my mind, because I don't have to, because I'm an American. I'm dug in, and I'll never change. Beck, look, you're wasting our time. You're not going to get us to not believe in evolution. And why is that? Because the smartest scientists in the entire world all agree that it's real. I'm glad you brought that up. Mr. Reynolds, these were all the smartest scientists. Only problem is, they kept being wrong. This is insane, you fool. I'm a fool because I have more faith in the saints that wrote the Bible? Yeah, because you just read the words of a bunch of guys that you never met, and you just taken on faith that everything they wrote was true. And what makes you think what your scientists are writing is any more truer than my saints? Because there are volumes of proven data, numbers, figures. Have you poured through the data yourself? The numbers, the figures? Well, no. Oh, interesting. So let me get this straight, Mr. Reynolds. You get your information from a book written by men you've never met, and you take their words as truth based on a willingness to believe, a desire to accept, a leap of, dare I say it, faith? Come on, look, I mean, I don't even know how I'm supposed to respond to that, like, come on. Boats don't disappear over the curvature of the horizon. Boats disappear due to perspective. All you have to do is go to the beach, watch a boat disappear from your eye, and then whip out your telescope, your binoculars, or your high-powered zoom on your camera, and you can pull the entire boat right back into you.
Have you ever poured water on a ball? It doesn't stay on, does it? Behold, the flat earth. And when you pour water on it, guess what? It stays.
If the earth is flat, why doesn't water fall off the side?
Because of mountains, dumbass.
We're actually seeing a mirage of the Chicago skyline. Very interesting. Here's what's happening. This is a good example of a superior mirage. So Joshua was on the Lake Michigan shore. He was looking towards the west, and Chicago's beyond the horizon. Should not be able to see. Okay. Want to sit out? How far out are we now? 49, probably we lost at what? 47? No, 37. We come on 8 nautical miles. Okay, and we're 29.7 nautical from it. 29 nautical right now? Yeah.
Yeah, Tony?
That is a heck of a mirage right there.
Yeah. And, hey, just so you know, this whole time, what has been our heading?
Our heading has been 280 degrees, which is just 10 degrees off of due west.
But we also were using, what was our focal point?
Our focal point was the Sears Tower.
Which is also known as the Willis Tower, right?
Yes, the Willis Tower.
The Willis Tower, and we could see it the entire time.
We can see it the entire time, and every
Right, you don't even need to zoom in. I mean, it's right there.
27 miles.
There is an artificial river or canal called the Old Bedford. It is upwards of 20 miles in length and passes in a straight line through that part of the fence called the Bedford Level. The water is nearly stationary, often completely so, and throughout its entire length has no interruption from locks or water gates of any kind. So that it is, in every respect, well adapted for ascertaining whether any or what amount of convexity really exists.
You think the earth is round because that's what they told you. From elementary school, you trained to be a glober. Have you ever been out of space to see the curve? Or you just rely on NASA's every spoken word? Regurgitated theories, they be so absurd. All you globetards is just some creepy nerds.
So there's the pretty blue marble that NASA claims we are living on, with circumference of 24,901 and 3959 radius. So to find the curvature, you take 8 inches times your distance squared. That's 8 inches times your distance squared, and if you don't square the distance, you end up with this, and this is not what NASA has shown us. They have given us a beautiful blue marble that we love. So you get 8 inches for 1 mile, 32 inches in 2 miles, 16.6 feet with 5 miles, so on and so forth. So what I did is I shot this pier, which is in Daytona Beach, Florida. And as you can see, between the water and the walkway of the pier is about 12 to 16 feet based on the height of the people and the railing. So I started at Granada, which is 4.92 miles away, and I shot this, and based on that distance and the formula, there should be 16 feet of curvature, but obviously you can still see the entire gap under the... You can't have it both ways. You can't say we live on this ball and then say, oh, you can't detect the curvature. Well, you got to detect it somewhere, because if it's not dropping here, it's going to have to drop even more down the line in order to make that circle, that ball that they say we live on, and it's pretty round.
This is about half of the ball Earth with this curvature. Okay? Now, if this is half of the Earth, we should definitely be able to just pan the camera down and see the other half. Okay? Again, here's what we normally see. Here's what we see. This particular day, when they were faking the curve in their fisheye lens or whatever they were using, totally blew things out of proportion and made it look like the ISS is really far, like maybe, I don't know, it's 4,000 or 5,000 miles away. But if this is how half the Earth looks like, what continent is this? Because this is a giant continent that I have never seen before. Okay, if I'm looking at half of the Earth, not many continents take up half the Earth, except for that one Earth picture we saw where the
I came across this paper. It's an official NASA document published in August 1988 called The Derivation and Definition of a Linear Aircraft Model. And it's jam-packed full of mathematic equations, formulas, and all sorts of other stuff that describe a linear aircraft model. What I found interesting was on page 35, it says this: concluding remarks. This report derives and defines a set of linearized system matrices for a rigid aircraft of constant mass flying in a stationary atmosphere over a flat, non-rotating Earth. I'll put a link to this in
Please don't use my name. I prefer you refer to me as Mac. I'm a career commercial pilot, and I'm currently serving as a senior captain on the B777 fleet of a flag carrier airline. He's not going to name which airline for obvious reasons. I came across your Flat Earth clues recently and thought I'd share something with you. Before I do, I need to explain some technical details. I'll try to keep it short. Please bear with me. And I've read through this part already, and it's, you gotta listen. Try to listen closely. Keep in mind the details are pretty technical. I will try to dumb it down if I can. So, the ADIRU system, also known as the Air Data Initial Reference Unit, we pronounce it IDARU. IDARU. Oof, it's a horrible name, but I'll keep trying. IDARU is the standard in modern avionics. It's at the center of a modern aircraft's avionics system. This has been the case for some 20 odd years and has replaced the old inertia navigation system, otherwise known as the INS, which was a standalone reference for the navigation computer. IDA-RU offers 1. Ring laser gyros, no more mechanical spinning discs on gimbals. The RLG are on a tethered or strapped down platform. Ring laser gyros. 2. The integration with other systems. IDA-RU provides a reference for other systems like the ADIs, weather radar, yaw damper, thrust control, etc. It used to be the case that all of these systems were independently referenced with dedicated gyros. 3. Much greater processing power. Whenever IDA-RU is started up, it needs to be initialized or aligned. This is where the system calibrates itself to the spin of the Earth to prevent drift. The procedure involves entering your latitude and longitude coordinates and commanding the initialization. During initialization, no systems that reference it can be on, and the aircraft must be stationary and stable. Even loading luggage or catering supplies can disrupt it and cause an error. This takes from between 5 to 17 minutes, depending on how far from the equator you are. And by the way, as I was reading this the first time, I thought for a while there he was going to be, a pilot and finally a professional that comes out against flat Earth. But that's not where he's going with this. So bear with me, all right? Now the story, if you're still awake. In October of 2015, I was commanding a routine 6-hour flight. When it came to initializing the IDA-RU, it returned an error. This is not all that uncommon, and it usually takes on a second attempt. After a few tries, we just got the same thing. Error. I called the tower, explained the situation, and they sent an avionics tech out. He ran his check in the avionics bay and said that it all checked out and that the fault was only with the initialization module inside the box. In this situation, they would normally just unplug it and slide a replacement box in there. However, it's a rare occurrence and has never happened to me. Unfortunately, there was no replacement available at this location. I called the company and reported the situation. After about 20 minutes, someone got back to me and advised that they could get a replacement box to me, but would take about 12 hours. Or, since my flight plan was not outside of ground radar coverage, I could use GPS as a primary reference and adjust the IDA-RU's data via ATC manually and periodically to compensate for drift. I decided that the later suggestion was within safe limits and made the decision to continue. As instructed, I had my first officer regularly call ATC for ground radar positioning and make necessary adjustments to the IDA-RU data. However, throughout the entire flight, this was a 6-hour flight, no drift occurred. This was a real head-scratcher, and since it's company policy and my personal policy to understand as much as possible about the aircraft and its systems, I wanted to know why. I talked to someone at our fleet maintenance department and was told that they didn't make repairs to any black boxes, and I should talk to the manufacturer. In this case, Honeywell. I contacted Honeywell and managed to talk to a senior IDA-RU engineer. He was very helpful. It turns out they don't make the ACM, the Alignment Calibration Module, which looks a bit like a desktop PC hard drive, painted bright orange with warnings printed on it, do not open, serviceable only by manufacturer. It turns out that there's only one company that supplies these modules to all avionics makers, and nobody else seems to know anything about their workings. I tried contacting the company and was just given the runaround. This is very strange, since pilots are usually welcome anywhere in the industry. I could show up unannounced at Boeing and get treated like family. After a lot of digging, I found out that this mysterious ACM manufacturer is a contractor to NASA, and that's all I can find out.
When an aircraft takes off, climbs to its final altitude and levels off, the attitude indicator depicts a perfectly level attitude. As the aircraft travels towards its destination, sometimes in excess of 7,000 to 8,000 miles, the aircraft's attitude indicator maintains a perfectly level attitude. This, as we have seen, cannot be correct, because the gyro maintains its original position in space, regardless of the aircraft's attitude or its position on the Earth. According to known gyroscopic properties, a pilot flying by reference to his attitude indicator should in reality begin to fly away from the Earth, as the gyro will continually give a straight line from the plane in which the aircraft started.
Say 35,000 feet and maintains level according to its gyroscope, it will over time, let me switch the picture here, it will over time, as it's flying level, and this is an excellent video here. I will put a card up here right now so that you can go check out this video. It's fantastic. It's called Flat Earth Proof number 8, and the channel name is called Feed Your Mind. In any case, let's do a little graphic here so you can see what I'm talking about. Let's assume this airplane is at 35,000 feet cruising altitude. He goes into great detail to show how gyroscopes on an aircraft are set to perfectly level when they are level on the ground. They have to show any deviation from that. When they get up, they take off, they go immediately up to the cruising altitude. Again, we're going to assume 35,000 feet in this example right here. So what we say is, if you're on a ball, that you would fly out into space, because you would have to constantly be angling down to cover the curve of the Earth.
If you're flying in a commercial airliner at 500 miles per hour, you'll be flying at about 8.33 miles per minute. 8.33 times 60 minutes equals 499.8 miles in an hour. Thus, at 8.33 miles per minute and times 12 minutes, you will travel 99.96 miles. So, for example, rounding up to 100 miles, in the first 12 minutes, the expected curvature below you is 1.26 miles. And it just keeps getting exponentially higher and higher as you go. So, if you have an attitude indicator, which tells you if you're turning left or right or diving or climbing, and you have an airspeed indicator and an altimeter, 3 very important instruments that pilots are always scanning. And if you've got your plane trimmed for level flight, and the gyro is spun up inside and the airframe is caged to the gyro, the function of the gyro is to maintain rigidity in space apart from gravity. If it was dependent on gravity, some pilots could never do what they do.
For instance, is always completely flat, and you don't feel any motion. So if you were just born today and looked out, you wouldn't assume that you're standing on a spinning ball. you'd assume that you were on a flat, motionless plane. So to assume that we are on a spinning ball is actually contrary to our common sense and our everyday experience. And there's also experiment.
Well, hopefully I've encouraged at least one of you to look into it yourself. If not, pretty sketchy anyways. Thanks for watching another video on why I'm convinced the earth is flat. Stay tuned, coming next, fake